Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video we're going to be diving into details of New Balance's SuperComp range. So we've tested out three SuperComp shoes on the channel this year: the New Balance SuperComp Pacer, the Trainer, and the SC Elite V3. This video, the idea is we're going to run through each of the shoes, what it's good at, what it's bad at, how the range works as a three-shoe kind of unit, and which of the shoes really stands up best against the competition in its category. We talked to Tom about all that. First, I'm going to run through the design and the key specs of each shoe. We'll start with the Pacer. This is the shoe we got first. It costs £170 in the UK, $150 in the US. It's a very lightweight shoe. It's 199 grams or 7 ounces, and it's got an 8mm drop with a stack height that's under 30mm. I think it's around 28mm. Pacer is the short distance racing shoe in the range. It's got that low stack, but it's still got a carbon plate, and it's designed to be a very lightweight, fast shoe for short events, track reps, that kind of thing. So you've got the EnergyArc design, which is a key feature across the SuperComp range, but you haven't got as much of a rocker as on the other shoes because it is a lower stack, flatter shoe. You've got a full length carbon plate. You've got New Balance's FuelCell foam in the midsole. That's a key feature across the three shoes as well, but it's a little bit firmer in how it feels on the SuperComp Pacer. You've got a very thin mesh upper as you'd expect, and you've got a full tongue on the shoe, whereas the others use kind of sock-like tongues. And then you've got a very minimal outsole. You've got a bit of forefoot coverage there, 2 strips at the back, but the rubber almost sits flush with the foam. It's not going to be the most durable shoe. This is really an up and at them, short distance shoe. Use it sparingly. You've got a fair midsole cutout, but in comparison to the cutouts we're going to see on the other two shoes, it's much smaller. Speaking of huge cutouts, here's the New Balance SuperComp Trainer. This is the max stack training shoe in the range. It's 47mm stack at the heel, so it's an illegally high stack for racing in theory, but really this is built to be a very comfortable, bouncy training shoe anyway. It costs £210 in the UK, $180 in the US. It weighs in at 307 grams or 10.8 ounces. And like I said, it's got a 47mm stack height at the heel. It's got 8mm drop, so it comes down to 39mm at the forefoot. So that forefoot is the height of most carbon plate racing shoes. So you've got the EnergyArc setup again with the carbon plate running through the midsole, but you've got a much more pronounced rocker on this shoe because of the high stack. It really does rock and rock and rock once you get it going. You've got a massive stack of FuelCell foam, as you expect, which is a nice soft springy foam. So with such a big stack of soft foam, New Balance has taken several steps to try and make this a stable shoe. You've got the stability of a wide base, as you'd expect. That huge midsole cutout also kind of helps position your foot in the middle of the shoe as you're running to try and get you engaged with the plate correctly and not wobbling from side to side. The plate actually sits quite high at the heel on the shoe, which creates a firmer feel upon landing and again adds a bit of stability to the shoe. And you've also got sidewall, so the midsole rises really high here and your foot actually sits within it a little bit to try and create kind of a bucket seat. You've got a pretty lightweight mesh upper and not a lot of padding around the tongue here, and then you've got this tongue which kind of wraps the foot as well. Then you've got quite a firm kind of plastic insert at the heel there, the heel counter, to create a bit more stability. Outsole, again, is not the most extensive in the coverage, but you've got the strips around the big cutout, a bit more around the forefoot, and a little bit of rubber on the plate there just to try and protect that carbon plate where it sits a little bit lower in the foam at the forefoot of the shoe. Finally, let's come on to the New Balance SC Elite V3, which is the top of the range carbon plate racing shoe from New Balance, the top of the SuperComp range. It's positioned as a long distance racing shoe, but really it's the top racing shoe in the range for any distance. It costs £220 in the UK or $250 in the US. It weighs in at 228 grams or 8 ounces, and it's got a 4mm drop. And you're seeing a lot of the same elements in the shoe as you do with the SuperComp Trainer. You've got the EnergyArc system, so a nice scooped carbon plate running through a big stack of New Balance's FuelCell foam with the EnergyArc rocker geometry of the shoe there. Once again, the plate sits quite high in the foam at the heel of the shoe, which creates a more stable, firmer feel if you're heel striking. And then you've got that really aggressive rocker which tips you onto your forefoot quickly with the big midsole cutter under the shoe, again helping to position your foot in the middle of the plate and the shoe and stop you wobbling from side to side. There's two different firmnesses to the FuelCell used on the shoe. So the top layer is a little bit firmer, and then you've got the big squishy softer layer under the carbon plate. We've then got a very lightweight mesh upper as you expect. Tongue is just a bootie here. It's a sock-like upper you've got going on there. A little bit of support around the heel, not quite as extensive as on the SuperComp Trainer. And then the outsole, getting fairly minimal coverage, strips at the heel, strips at the forefoot, a little bit on the carbon plate to protect it, but keeping the weight down a little bit in comparison to the Trainer where they have a bit more weight to play with as it is a training shoe. Other thing to say about the SuperComp Elite V3 is that the other two shoes are widely available now. The Elite V3 has come out just in this New York edition colourway so far, with the full release expected in February next year. Right, joined by Tom now to talk about the fit of the shoes. Now, normally these fit sections can be a bit quick, Tom, but I've got a lot to say about fit here. How about you?
Well, I better not say too much then. All right, I'll bang through these. New Balance SE Elite V3 shooter size, but I do find that upper bit of a funny fit for me. It's difficult to explain, but I've got quite a big foot at the top of the midfoot, and this elasticated upper and twinned with the laces is a little bit uncomfortable. It sort of straps down the foot. So true to size, but if you've got big feet or weird feet, then take that into account. Trainer, true to size. I've not had any issue with the shoe. And Pacer, I've been fine with that. No issues at all. I thought it was quite comfortable, no problem. So I'd go true to size in all of them, but just keep those points into consideration. You go for it now if you've got a half-hour discussion about the fit.
Well, I think New Balance are the biggest brand to me that change their size a lot. So these, I've just checked, these are all UK 9s, US 9.5s, which for a start is a bit odd. Generally, I'm a US 10, UK 9. But they've always done this thing with their racing shoes where I think they're very short in the toe box, and that's what the fit is like on the Pacer for me. It's fine, just because I'm slightly small for my size, I think, normally, but it is, my toes are right up the front, and you want that a little bit in things like spikes and short-distance racing shoes. But yeah, it's a pretty aggressive fit. I think going half size up would probably be the way to go here, but Tom says different. But I would say that would be my what I'd say for that. Whereas the trainer does fit completely true to size for me. This has got New Balance's training shoe style fit, which is nice and roomy, nice and comfortable, no problems at all. And the SE Elite's kind of in between. Like, I love the fit of this true to size. I've got the perfect amount of room, but I think it's quite a snug fit in general with this socket light upper. And like I said, I'm a bit small for my size, so it works out fitting really well for me. But there might be a bit more pressure, especially if big high foot that's pushing into this tongue here, or whatever Tom's weird foot shape is he keeps mentioning. So yeah, I think a little bit interesting. I would go half size up in the Pacer for sure. The others are true to size, but I'd be aware that it's a slightly snug fit with this slightly odd tongue design here on the SC Elite V3. Okay, on to the run test. Now, these shoes obviously broken up as the big high-stack training shoe, the short-distance racing shoe, and then the long-distance racing shoe, all with carbon plates. But the one we got first, Tom, was the SuperComp Pacer, the short-distance racing shoe. Mm-hmm. Interesting. How did you find this shoe?
Fine. I mean, it's a short-distance racing shoe. It's got a carbon plate in it. I didn't see the point of the carbon plate in the shoe. I couldn't really feel it. I wouldn't use this for short distance races. I think other shoes I've got are better for short distances, and they're not really designed for short distances. I just think it's a bit of a limited shoe. It feels quite lightweight. I've used it for track before and it was fine. It's just not cushioned enough for me, even at short distances. And as a result, I didn't really find much use for it in my training.
Yeah, I think it is a bit limited. Like I said, I did enjoy running the shoe. It's right, so you're not getting, it's got the EnergyArc and the carbon plate and the FuelCell foam, but it's not really giving any of those vibes on the run. It's quite a flat shoe. It's got a fast ride, quite a slappy, nippy ride, more akin to old racing shoes than anything like the SE Elite V3. So I did a couple of road sessions in it, training sessions, and it was fine. But I remember doing one where I was doing mile reps, quite fast mile reps. I did a couple in this shoe and then a few in the Adios Pro 3, a big, heavy cruiser carbon shoe, and that just felt much quicker and better, even over miles, just because if you're on a flat road, those big stacks of foam and plates really work well. I did do a race in it though, and this is where it did work for me. It was like it was like a 10k race. It was one of those club 10ks that's like between 9.9, 9.7 and 10.4, something like that. And it was half on kind of trail, but in the summer, so it was dry, and then lots of twists and turns, a few uphills, downhills. And a nimble shoe like this really works well for that. It's again similar to what an old racing shoe would be like, but you are getting a bit more protection and punch from this shoe. So I think that was more or less perfect for it. I had a really good race that day. I really enjoyed how it felt, and there were periods in that race where a carbon shoe wouldn't be great. Slightly looser ground, lots of turns, the higher stack wouldn't have really helped. And then there were a few, and this shoe felt nimble on it, and then there was more runnable sections, long downhills on straight roads where a carbon shoe would have been better, but this was still delivering a bit more kind of bounce than a traditional racing flat. So it was very useful there, but at the end of the day, everyone else in that race was very happy in Vaporflies, but I did feel like it was quite nice and nimble to have at times.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about the Pacer is that I've probably done about 50, 60k in this shoe. There's hardly any cushioning on the bottom of the shoe, that sort of softer mid-outsole foam, and I've got so many sort of wear and tear marks on it that I do have a concern that it's not going to last very long. There's not a lot of cushioning on there. There's not a lot of foam, and yeah, it's sort of wearing away on mine already after 60k.
Yeah, definitely. And even when they have put rubber on the outsole, it sits almost flush with the foam.
Yeah.
Helen actually borrowed these shoes off me, my wife, and she's got a much smaller foot, which does speak to my point about having quite a small fit. And she punctured the foam. It's like she was stood like a little stone, and it just went entirely into the midsole. And it's reformed. It's fine, but yeah, it's not the most durable outsole for sure. Now, I think after that, we got the SuperComp Trainer, which is a very different experience to the SuperComp Pacer, it's fair to say, Tom.
Yeah, SuperComp Trainer is an interesting one. When we, you know me, love a massive shoe, as big as you can get. I'll take it. And this has got this has got a carbon plate in it.
Yeah, carbon plate, all the rocker stuff.
Yeah.
It's even got that bit of rubber on the plate that you love so much.
I have to be careful because I always get that wrong, and then you always correct me. So I think the thing about the Trainer is that it's a training shoe that is designed to work alongside the SE Elite V3 or RC Elite V2 if that's what you're using. But it's a very clunky shoe. I use this for quite a few training runs, and I do like this shoe. I do enjoy it. I think that when you go out for a training run and you are aiming to do a nice bouncy consistent 10 15k, I think it works really well. I think it's very comfortable. I can feel that bounce. The bulk of the shoe doesn't really cause me an issue over that distance, but when you start getting longer, and I went 30k run in this shoe, and once I got past like 15k 18k, you really feel this like big shoe on your feet, and the benefit you get from that plate and everything sort of disappears, and you start going, I'm just really lugging around quite a big shoe now, which isn't what you want. So I tend to use this shoe for shorter distance. So if I'm going for a nice easy run and I want to maybe be able to go a bit faster, like probably not a tempo run, but picking up the pace a little bit, not just going really easy. I think this is a good shoe for that, and I do enjoy it. I think it's very comfortable. I just think it's limited, and to be honest, I wouldn't get it as a training partner.
Yeah, that's a lot of things. Like when I first put it on and went out for like an hour run, like the classic training run you're talking about, it felt great. It's the most like bouncy shoe, and it just doesn't lose bounce. Sometimes shoes will really bouncy the first half a k out the door, but by the end of the run they've lost that a bit. But no, this doesn't. It just feels bouncy and bouncy and bouncy, and I was so excited. I thought it was great, and I was really looking forward to using it for a 22-mile run that weekend. And I was running that at a decent clip, not anywhere near like my race paces, but it wasn't just all out cruising, and just started to feel big, really big, probably about 13, 14 miles in. I still had 8 to go, and I was just wishing I was in a lighter shoe, a smoother shoe, because it's got the big rocker. Obviously, it's got an incredible rocker design, but this feels very squish in and bounce forward for the ride, whereas the SE Elite would come on to talk about, you do get a really nice smooth rocking motion, I think. But this is all about that spongy, bouncy foam, and yeah, I just found the ride a bit tiring mentally, and thinking about where the shoe was because it's so big, and it sapped me a little bit. But it still produces the goods. It's a good shoe for that kind of distance, but I thought it was going to be the perfect long run shoe, and I wouldn't take it anywhere near that long again. I tried taking it down the track as well, doing some reps in it, and I felt like a bit of a clown because it's so big and bouncy, and then the track's quite bouncy, and I felt like springing all over the place. And it was fine. It can move pretty well for such a big shoe. It's not the heaviest shoe in the world either, but yeah, I just don't find it great for using anything other than those. Yeah, exactly that. What you were talking about, like kind of 5 miles to 15k, kind of that kind of daily training, it does eat those up quite nicely, but don't think it really fulfills its role at all within the SuperComp range. Like we've talked about it in the design section, I mentioned this is going to be like your training partner shoe. It's going to sap up all those everyday runs, but it doesn't really do them, because lots of runs I don't want to do in this shoe. I don't really want to go to do tempo runs. I don't really want to do intervals. I don't really want to do very long runs in it that much. And you've got to kind of be on pretty flawless terrain as well to really enjoy the benefits of it. And it's really expensive. So I think looking at its role in the range, I just don't think it does it very well, despite being quite an interesting shoe.
Yeah, last bit from me on this. What I did find is that it sort of propels you forward a bit when you're running. You don't want that when you're doing a slow long run. You want it to be natural and not think about it. And it's sort of it's annoying. It's like, oh God, it's pushing me, and I don't want to do that. And it's hefty. And then the other thing is it's really high. And I went running a few night runs, and I'd occasionally hit a stone or a bit of an uneven ground, and you wobble a bit, and you slow down. It's a risky shoe. I would not suggest this to like a beginner. No,
it feels like a shoe that's very good in certain conditions for certain runs, but outside of that, it's not the best. Yeah. Now, on to the last shoe in the range, the one we got most recently. This is the SuperComp Elite V3. So this is the long distance racing shoe, but it's really the proper carbon shoe in the range. It's the one that's got the stack that goes up to the World Athletics limit. big EnergyArc rocker like the others, full carbon plate. Great shoe. Tom, how have you found this?
Love it. I say love it. I really enjoyed it. I think I've got a little bit of a way to go for it to be sort of my favourite race shoe, but it's a shoe that's come around at tricky time for us because we've just finished marathon, so we're sort of going down from our training, and I used the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 for all of my races during marathon season. So I'm only really just picking up. I did a race at 10k racing this last weekend, loved it, thought it was fantastic. I think it is a really enjoyable shoe. It's definitely fast. It's got lovely bounce in it, and I think it's the best race shoe that New Balance has ever released. I think it's really up there. It's one of the top 3 or 4 race shoes out at the moment for me. I've not warmed to it as much as the Pro 3 just because I think it's a little bit denser. The midsole, compare it to the RC Elite V2, it's significantly lighter and just a little bit more poppy. It's not as soft as that shoe, but I do think it's a little bit denser than what you'd find in the Vaporfly or the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. So I really enjoy it. I think it's a great shoe. I haven't quite got to the point where it's completely clicked for me yet, but I think it's the best thing that New Balance has done in racing.
Yeah, I really like the shoe. It's got, like I say, a more aggressive ride than the RC Elite V2. Certainly got a firmer feel at the heel. You get that nice rocker, but it's a really good balance of the really pronounced rocker, like I say, with that FuelCell bouncy foam. So you get both of them. I feel like you don't really get much rocker in the Pacer. You just get a big spongy bouncy feeling in the trainer. But the rocker works perfectly. It's really fluid, really fat, really propulsive and powerful, and worked really well at a range of distances. And I think of the 3 shoes, this is the one that does its job the best. This is a great racing shoe. It's great for 5k. I've done 2 park runs in it, all that, and I've really enjoyed running in it. It's good for longer runs. I've only got up to about 10 miles so far, but so comfortable, and I really would like to go further in it. Might do that this weekend. I think it would just tick every distance off very well as a racing shoe, and looking within this range, it almost does the jobs of the other 2 shoes better. I think it's certainly a better racing shoe than the Pacer, I think, for any distance, unless you're like I was saying, on slightly uneven, broken ground, when maybe this has a little bit of an edge to it. And I enjoyed running longer distances more in this than the New Balance trainer, and even mooching around a short daily run, it felt great. So I think this is the one shoe of the 3 shoe rotation we've got here that's really nailed its job. And then comparing it to external shoes, like you say, there's some really good competition here, but it does stand up pretty well to them. So normally we come to the verdict. We're telling you if you should get a shoe or comparing it to another one in a versus. But what we've got here is a complete rotation of shoes New Balance has tried to create, like a fast shoe rotation, all with plates. Tom, I'm going to start with, would you buy these shoes? Do you think they work as a rotation? And then we can maybe talk about how each of them does its job and compare to other options on the market. So yeah, do you think this is a good rotation option?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'd never have this as a rotation.
Fair enough. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I think the SE Elite V3 sitting at the top as the race shoe is brilliant, versatile, great shoe. I think if you want a rotation of shoes and you want a versatile, fast training shoe to go along with this, the trainer isn't that. The trainer is a limited shoe that is going to delivers for quite niche intended purpose. It's quite a bulky training shoe. I'd want something a bit lighter. I'd want the Speed 3 or something. So yeah, I just don't think it's going to do the job as a training partner for it. And then the Racer, and then the Pacer, I just don't know. There's no reason to get it. I don't know why you'd have it in your rotation. I think the only reason you get the Pacer is that you didn't like a lot of cushioning. You were very sort of traditional, minimal sort of runner, like traditional style shoes. Then it might be okay, but it wouldn't go in my rotation. I'd just use the SE Elite V3 for the stuff that I'd presumably use the Pacer for.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Pacer is almost a missed opportunity for me. I think if they made the stack slightly lower and made it track legal, then maybe it could have been an interesting, like people who do lots of track races, a really nice 10k on the track shoe, but it's too high for that, so it kind of ends up being neither here nor there. And I think if you're looking at these low stack shoes, the Takumi Sen is a much better shoe if you're looking for a fast, kind of lower stack shoe. But in general, everything that the Pacer has done, I found the SE Elite V3 does a bit better. And again, I don't think these really work as a rotation, as a training partner shoe, just because this is a bit limited, and it's I don't know, it's just so much in every way. Like, also, it's incredibly expensive. So that's the other thing we need to talk about with this range, Tom. These shoes are really overpriced, I think, apart from the SE Elite V3, which is priced about par for a carbon racing shoe. So these two shoes are already not that fond of. Don't think they nail their jobs. I think the shoes that do their jobs better. And then they're really expensive. So even this is quite an interesting, quite a fun shoe to try out. No one's going to do that when you're spending over 200 quid on it. So I think certainly, if you're viewing it as a training partner shoe, the Speed 3 is better, I think, for sure. It's faster, lighter, just a bit more natural feeling. The Puma Deviate Nitro 2, I think, is also better, and that's good for lots of easy runs as well. It's got a nice thick outsole. Even non-plated shoes like the Hoka 5, I prefer using to this. Just more natural, better for long runs, better for quick runs, still just as good on those kind of dibbly-dobbly daily runs. And then on the short distance circuit, I still don't think this is a category of shoe that really needs to exist, but the Takumi Sen is a better shoe than this. I think the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite is not a low stack shoe, but it's about as light as this and is another great racing option. But really, the SE Elite is a better racing shoe for every distance. This is the interesting one, I think, in the range for me. The other two, I don't think I'll be recommending to anyone. There are better shoes out there from other brands. It doesn't work really as a partnership. This is the one that stands up well against things like the Endorphin Pro 3, the Metaspeed Sky Plus, the Vaporfly. It will do, I think, just as good a job as those shoes, really. It will come down to your personal preference on feel. And so far, we haven't, spent huge amounts of time this year enough to really love it, but we really like it. Maybe if we do some races down the line, we might end up really loving it. But at the moment, I think it's a really good option, whereas the rest of the SuperComp line, I think, was a bit of a miss for me this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing to say about the SuperComp line is that they've all got plates in them. I wouldn't have plates in all the shoes in my rotation. One, because they tend to cost more money anyway, but something, I think the Hoka 5 is a good example, because I think for the things that I would use the Pacer for, I'd probably more likely to use something like the Hoka 5. I don't really want that plate in it. So yeah, I don't think it's really an obvious rotation. And yeah, I'm sticking with the S Elite V3 as the standout takeaway from this line at the moment.